Broads Media.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into this episode of Schmoozed. Today, we are joined by Jason Myrtetus to talk about the Fly Guys. It's a nice start to the season. Before we do that, what's up, Jason? What's happening?
Not much. Same old, same old. Just I'm enjoying the season just because it's been great to have the game back. I love the full 82. I know some people are like, it's too many games. They got less games. I like the full 82. So I've been enjoying it, not just the Flyers, but also, around the league. I think it's been fascinating so far this season. Some teams are off to a really good start, and I'm surprised by it.
Yeah, no, I know. I know Buffalo lost last night to San Jose. I caught some of that action late, but they do that every year, that team. But Calgary, we just saw them the other night when we were in Calgary, and the Flyers kind of had a dud. But who would have thought that the Flames would start out that hot?
Yeah, well, they got Darryl Sutter last year after what happened with the Bill Peters situation, and he had the full training camp, so you knew he was going to put his touches on it, and he doesn't screw around.
How about the
And
Rangers,
you know what
too? I didn't see the Rangers like this.
Yeah, I thought I've been thinking for a while that they were really trending in a good direction. I just wasn't sure if they were good enough up the middle with the centers, but they've been off to a good start. And, I tell you, Shesterkin's a stud, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. It's exciting, especially in this division. We're going to be seeing the Capitals soon and the Penguins, even though COVID with Sidney Crosby and some others and all that. But how about this? How about we begin with a broad approach here with the Flyers? I mean, there's a lot of exciting stuff, whether it's that second line, hell, the third line of only Oscar Lim. It'll come for Oscar Lindblom. I know he had a lot of chances last night, but just your overall thoughts before we start peeling back the layers.
I mean, so far this season, it hasn't been perfect, the first homestand, people were like, "Oh, it's a great homestand," and I was like, it was good. It wasn't great, but it was solid. I'm good with it. And then they go on the road trip in the first two games. I thought, on that road trip they played great. They were really good in Edmonton against a team that was just absolutely all over the place, and with McDavid, and I thought they played their best period of the season in that third period. They came out and they got punched a couple of times. You can't keep up with how fast they are, but I thought they did a good job of clogging them. And then the next night, a back-to-back, you leave Alberta, you head to BC, another 10 o'clock Eastern time zone game, and they played a totally different game and won that. So, you know this because some teams can only win games one way. Good teams can win one way. Really good teams can win no matter which way you want to play. And I think they've won three different ways. The Edmonton game was kind of run and gun, really fast team. Then a grinded out 2-1 game. And then I thought some of the other games, slightly different styles as well, from period to period. But it's a good start. It's not perfect. I think there's some process things that need to be better. But the goaltending's been good. Provorov has been, I know it only has 1 point, but I don't care. The dude has not been on the ice.
I knocked Justin Braun in years past because I thought, look, first off, the compensation at the time, I was like, it's a little steep. But what he's doing right now is ridiculous. And I would have never thought in a million years that he'd be +4 in a game with a handful of assists. And he's been steady. He really has been.
Yeah, and he's not the long-term answer. You need Ellis back eventually. He's been great. I mean, Provorov hasn't been on the ice for a 5-on-5 goal all year.
That's insane.
And think about it, like who he gets matched up against, right? He gets, the top line of every team. So, and the role that he plays. And he's only got the 1 point. I talked to him last night. He was on Flyers Daily. And I asked him if the lack of points bothers him. And you could tell it did a little bit. Because, you want to end up, he's an offensive player as a D-man. He's got good offensive skills, and he's only got 1 point. So he wants to get on the score sheet, but he's been really good defensively. And then, up front, I mean, when you consider that they've done this so far in the teams they've played without Ellis for 5 games and without Hayes at all, and Derek Brassard is your second line. Find me another team that's got a player on a veteran minimum at 2C and is having success. You won't find it. So it's a good start.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's funny because in the beginning of the offseason, I loved everything that they were doing. The Cam Atkinson move, the Ristolainen one, we'll touch more on that. But ultimately, when I saw the whole entire package, I was thrilled. And then towards the end, they started to maneuver through the Keith Yandel and the Brassard. And while it wasn't a lot of money, there was something in the back of my mind that wondered, they are getting up there in age, and they have a good mix with Lindblom and Law. And it's not as if they just have a ton of old guys, but even though they wanted the letters on the chests in the locker room and all that to be a main focus, I was wondering, are they relying a little too much on age? Ryan Ellis, as we're seeing, a little bit injured, and Broussard, older. But even though that did raise eyebrows to me just a little bit, I mean, they clearly, at least to this point, there's a long season ahead, plus the Olympics as well, which throws a little bit more of a wrench in there as well. But yeah, you know what? To this point, it's been very strong.
Yeah, they went from one of the younger teams in the league in the last couple of years to one of the fourth oldest. So they're north of 29 years old, but that's, a large part due to some of those signings. Nate Thompson's another guy north of, I think he's 34, 35, maybe even 36 at this point. So you have a couple of those guys that you're not relying on for the future, but you're relying on for the present. And they wanted to get obviously better in the present. And they needed a lot of that character with turning over the players that they did. And, that's the one thing through 8 games too that I've seen, that I feel like they're more a team now through 8 games than they ever were last year. Guys sticking up for each other, having their back. I thought what Couturier did at the end of the game against Arizona.
Yeah.
Like you played, this.
Dude,
that's a big deal.
I'm shooting that puck every single time. I couldn't believe it.
I so rare that a guy will do that, because goals equal dollars, right? But he's got his 8-year extension. That's kicking in next year.
And guess what? Who's on a contract here?
And Giroux's on a contract here. Exactly. Yeah. Goals equal dollars. It was funny. I asked him about it after the game, and he said, well, the guys, the boys are giving it to him because they already got 2 ENGs on the year. So if I get a third, they're really going to give it to me. And then Atkinson said after the game, he goes, didn't you hear G calling for it?
That's awesome. I love it.
But I love that unselfish play. And that's like what Couturier is. He's just such a no frills player. Everybody, you heard this at FanFest. They don't have a star player. You don't have a superstar. You need a superstar to win. And I say bullshit. First of all, you don't. Look at the Blues. O'Reilly's not a superstar. He's very Couturier. And Tarasenko's a goal scorer, but whatever. But Couturier, even though he's not perceived as a superstar, he's not flashy. He doesn't fly up and down the ice. He's as good of a player in this league as there is. Point per game player. One of the best two-way players in the game, if not the best. Best face-off guy in the league. Been top 3 for the past 4 years, along with Giroux. By the way, Giroux last night went 14 of 16 in the face-offs. Ridiculous. But, I mean, he's a star. He doesn't purport himself that way because he's just a good old Canadian boy, and he was born in Arizona. But that's just the way he is. But he plays for Team Canada. I always lobby. Dude, you were born in Arizona. You got to play for Team USA. But anyway, he's a great player.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? With Giroux, it's just the eye test I'm going off of here. You might dive into analytics, whatever. But the way Giroux has been playing to start this year and what he did last year at times, even though the decor was a mess, I thought there were multiple occasions where he willed that team to win. And even when you look at his clapper this year, it seems everything has more of a purpose. Maybe it is the contract. Maybe it's the combination of the contract and the noise that he has heard from the morons in this city over the years. But the last 2 years, I think I've even seen him take another step in his game. And what are your thoughts on that? Or am I looking too much into this? This is pure eye test for me.
I think you got a great feel on it because I totally agree with you. I talked about it on the postgame show after the Coyotes game. To me, he's leading the team in shots. When
that
is
one
Claude
that hit the iron on the one-timer on the power play?
Yeah. He attempted 8 shots in that game. You're talking Ovi-like attempts at shooting, right? That's never been him. He leads the team in shots on goal with 27 through 8 games. And you're right. Way more purpose in his shooting this year than ever before, with the exception of maybe 17, 18, when he had 34 goals and 102 points. But it seems to me, I think the contract does play a part in it because I always believe that it does. Dollars equal, just a heightened sense of everything when it's coming up, number one. Number two, I think he's very aware. I've talked to him about this several times. He's very aware of his legacy and what he wants it to be. And he doesn't want it to be what the perception is now since he's been the captain. And he's going out there, and I think he's, kind of grabbing it by the balls and just saying, we're way closer to the team we were 2 years ago than that shit show we were last year. And I think he's trying to prove a point that the truth is somewhere in the middle of those two teams, right? At that second half of 1920 and last year, but it's way closer to what it was 1920, and last year was the outlier. I think he's trying to prove that, and he's been incredibly aggressive. The amount of like in tune and in sync he is with Couturier on a hockey level is like off the charts. Those bank pays off the M boards and just the way those two play together. He makes plays like the first goal, the Couturier goal in the Arizona game. He just stretched the ice to Couture or to Konechny. And then a boneheaded move by the Arizona guy to challenge it at the blue line. He just stepped by him and it was a 2-on-1. But that's what Arizona does. But he's stretching I think the hockey IQ doesn't go away, right? Even though he may not be as explosive as he once was and can't take over physically like he did, I just think he thinks the game better. So and every time you think he's slowing down, he throws one at you.
No doubt. And I
that
don't
102 came after 3 straight years of regression.
Yeah.
And people were writing him off. And he came out and said, balls,
Who won it that year? Taylor Hall?
Yeah, Taylor Hall won the Hart that year. I think Giroux should have won it. Hall had a great year with New Jersey. I think they look at his numbers.
You know what? They made the playoffs. That was the difference, though. Don't you think the playoff run there for New Jersey?
Yeah, they get in. The Flyers got in there too.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Year. And Giroux had the hat trick, his first regular season hat trick on the 82nd game of the season against the Rangers.
That's right.
To get to even 100 and then 102 eventually. So, I think he's playing with a lot of purpose and very conscientious of the perception of him. I don't think nothing gets by him. He's a smart guy.
I don't want to go too far into this, but in terms of him returning here and continuing his legacy in Philly, would you say, or do you hear anything that it seems to be a higher percentage than not?
Yeah, I would think, he wants to finish here. And these are things I've talked about with him, not, publicly. He wants to finish here and he doesn't want to play for another team. He wants to win, and how this season goes will determine more, kind of like Couturier said last year. They could have signed him right away to an extension, and he waited until he saw the moves, and then he signed the deal and totally took a discount. I think Giroux's in the same situation, where he definitely, this is the priority. I think there's about an 85-90% chance that he's back. I don't see many scenarios where he leaves. So, and the Ottawa thing, I think that's just noise because that's where he lives in the off season, and he's from back there. So I think that's just noise and, people trying to piece things together because it's a big story, but I think he's back here. And I don't think he's going to command, $8 million. I know that,
right,
but
right.
I think it's probably around 5.5, 5, 8, 6, something like that on a 3-year deal.
Well, guess what? If he's playing this way and you're paying him that much money, think about what you could do with the rest of the contract and all that, and what Chuck Fletcher could do, who's made some solid moves. All right. Speaking of moves, Ristolainen. So at the time, I liked the move. I'll be honest with you. I thought it was an overpay, but I understood it. When I watch him, and me and you have talked about analytics. We're both not analytic people with hockey and the Corsi and all that. But when I do watch him, specifically with Sanheim, there are times where I go, damn it, I have no argument, because what is happening out there is exactly what those people say is an issue. But then there are times where he throws the physical body, and you need that, especially with the team that didn't have so much toughness last year. I'm afraid of this, where he's just okay. And then because you want to justify the move after the season, we paid this much, we have to sign him, he was a first-round pick, you might make a further move that might hurt you. As of now, I just think he's okay and honestly replaceable if this continues. But what are your thoughts?
I think he's gotten better so far this year. I think there's a couple things at play. First of all those years in Buffalo, 6 different head coaches, all the different general managers, all the different messages and do this, do that from every guy telling him something different. And we know playing in Buffalo can screw up players big time. Yeah. Look what it's done to Skinner. I mean, I think if he got out of there, maybe the guy could score. Look what they would Hall. He had 1 goal in Buffalo, and he goes to Boston and he starts, potting it. So I think that there's a period of time where you have to do 2 things with him. You have to tear him down a little bit and rebuild them, and you have to wash the Buffalo stink off them. I've kind of likened it like if you were working on your car all day and you got all that crap all over your hands like a mechanic. You can't just wash your hands once and they're clean.
Right.
It takes a while to get 6 years of Buffalo off you. So, and that goes into how you prepare every day, how you practice every day, all of those things, because it extended into all of those areas as well, from what I'm told. And in the beginning, he missed a couple of games and he came in. I really felt like watching him that I could see him thinking on the ice. And you can't at that level, you can't think because it's
Let me
just so
throw
fast.
this your way a little bit, because I was always a defender of Sanheim, but I think by now I would have expected maybe a little bit more jump in his game than where he's at. He's serviceable. He's not horrendous by any means, but I had a higher ceiling on where he'd be at this point in his career. The combination of the two, they're both prone heavy, mistake prone heavy, where is it the combination of two that might be more of a problem, where if and I'm not going to make it seem like Yandel would be the greatest help in the world, but if something like Justin Braun was paired with a Travis Sanheim, would Travis Sanheim look as bad, or more of a stay-at-home defenseman? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he would definitely look different because with Braun that he's very defensive oriented, and Ristolainen will jump into a play. I think lately though you're starting to see a little bit of chemistry start to develop. Ristolainen, you could see him like almost looking, okay, I got my back to the play. I'm going back to get a puck. Where is he? Is he down at the bottom of the circle? Is he trailing behind the net? So I think that just takes time. He's made, I think, some really good plays, but to your point, I think he's missed on some plays trying to be overly physical, knowing that that's an element that and a reason why they brought him here. So I think there's a long way to go. Those two, it's going to be interesting to see because if they can develop chemistry, it could be a really good pair and they could complement each other. But I'm not there yet. There's still a lot. I still see him thinking on the ice, system wise and everything. And that's been a hallmark of AV teams. When he gets a team, it does take them a while to come together to figure out what he wants. And there's a lot of, stripping him down and building him back up, washing the Buffalo stink off and learning the system has been, I think, part of it. So I'm kind of trying to hold off on, kind of where I think he is until about mid-season. And I go, okay, he's had enough time now. What is he able to do now? And can he have that element of being a real prick on the ice and be effective defensively? That's got to be the combo, because he's not going to outscore his mistakes if not. So
yeah, it's interesting you bring up the mid-season thing, because do you know Overdrive out in Toronto with Jeff O'Neill, and it's their TSN show? I tune into them a little bit at night and whatnot, listen to their podcast and show, and they used American – I know this is kind of what Canada does or whatever, but they use American Thanksgiving as sort of their threshold of, like, this is when you should know your team, and that's just in a couple weeks. And I was thinking, that is a little too soon for my liking. I don't know. I mean, American Thanksgiving, you should know the pure identity of your hockey team, because they're looking at the Maple Leafs right now. What's going on with Matthews and Marner? And, of course, they had a good game against Vegas last night, so that'll change their whole storylines. But they're nuts out there. They treat Toronto Maple Leafs like we do Eagles. I love it. Last year, I remember real quick, I was listening to them right before the first puck drop of them, and they were pissed off that Spezza was a healthy scratch with Babcock and all this.
Yeah.
And, like, imagine 97.5 or whatever, us breaking down that McEwen or something was a healthy scratch. And I get it. One's a veteran and one's not. But that just it's awesome, yet funny to me to hear a passionate city talk about a healthy scratch like we would someone being inactive on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, it's funny because you go to Canada and you never have to ask them to turn on the TV in the sports bar to the hockey game. Here you always do, right? Hey, can you put the hockey game on? Yeah, we'll put it on this little
they go to
Magnavox over here.
They're looking for Versus or like OTN or whatever the hell it was.
The Outdoor Life Network.
Yeah.
OLN. No, but the thing is too, that American Thanksgiving thing is a little different this year because they started about 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
But the old rule of thumb was American Thanksgiving, if you weren't a playoff team at that point, the chances of you making the playoffs were about 10%. I think that's changed over the last couple of years. It used to be like kind of a hard and fast rule, but and a way of thinking. But yeah, I mean, they're a little behind that because usually by now they would have played probably about 14 games. If you start like October 5th, they started like mid-October, so it's a little off, but
I guess with hockey, though, I've seen so many teams, right? The Kings, 8th seed, win the cup. In this sport, to put it so early is we just watched the Braves win the World Series, and we've seen this before. Yep. And, I just think now, knowing how much could change after the deadline, when you add players and you add depth forwards or whatever you're looking for, there's so much that can change over the 82 that it's so 20 games in. I'm still trying to figure out who they are at 20 games in instead of coming down with an actual statement on this is what they are going to be. So that's just, the way I kind of say it. But I need to ask you about Carter Hart. We're 20 minutes in. We're talking about everything else except for the netminder. I love watching your breakdown. I remember I was scrolling on Twitter one day, and you got the camera view of Carter Hart. You're watching it in slow-mo. And I clicked
Frame
on it,
by
like,
frame.
this is amazing. It hit Ivan Provorov's shin just a half a little inch, and that changed the trajectory. I was cracking up because that's just the netminder in you. Well, I'm Ivan Provorov trying to block the shot, and I'm getting yelled at by the goalie for not letting it go through. So
yeah, just give me a line.
Yeah, exactly. So look, what have you seen from him and Martin Jones, who's played 2 very strong games so far?
Yeah, Hart at points in the very beginning, I thought he looked good and battled, but wasn't completely dialed in positionally. He does look a lot stronger in his skating. And Barry goes, "What do you mean skating? He doesn't move anywhere." Goalie skating, like kind of getting to his spots, staying on his edges, and being there, set and square, waiting for it. Because when he's playing good, he's not flashy. When he's playing really good and he's reading plays right, it's almost like a boring goaltender to watch because everything hits him in the logo and he absorbs pucks. Because that's his game: efficiency and movement, getting the spots and play reading. He's not a guy like Marc-Andre Fleury that's going to take a ton of ice and be flailing all over, making these crazy saves. That's just not what suits him. So he takes a little less ice. And I just think that he's gotten sharper and sharper in his movements and hitting his spots. And especially over the last 2 games, I think you've seen it really. That Calgary game where the team didn't show up, but he did. I thought he was really good in that. And the Arizona game, despite the fact that that's a bit of a gong show there, he made some really good saves and made them look easy. And they weren't easy saves. A lot of them were east-west plays where he just kind of went from, cross his crease and was there waiting on the shot before it's released on his feet. Last year, you saw him a lot sliding in the saves, and that's never good because that kind of ties you up and limits your, ability to adjust to pucks. And I just think he's looked really good, and he's put a little bit of muscle on down low. He's more explosive in his movements. So I think that's good. I think the big thing that he did, though, was that he found a way to park last year and get rid of it. And he said he played a ton of tennis and hung out with buddies in his family, which he didn't get to do it all last year. But he like chewed on it for a couple weeks. And then he went out to L.A. and said he went out there golfing and played tennis and hung out with one of his buddies and was able to get rid of it. And I think that was big because he's coming in mentally in a totally different headspace than when he left.
Yeah, for sure. Well, he was getting beat a lot glove side last year. And, look, the league was going to always counter him. And that's why we always said in the beginning, he's 20-something years old. This is not normal. There's a reason why that this is, out of the ordinary. It's strange to be so young and have this type of pressure. And then he came in and was strong. And then last year with the defensive core in general and the team in the D zone in general, it was a mess. But on top of that, he would get beat. And then he's kind of looks like he's countering the counter a bit. And there's 2 areas I wanted to ask you about with him. Obviously, the glove side high is something to look at, but also playing the puck. There's been some not stories, but just in general, watching him play, sometimes there were some questionable decisions playing the puck in the past. Have you seen that take a step in the right direction too?
Well, the glove side high first. In the first game, he actually got beat glove side high by Podluzin for his first NHL goal. And that's kind of why I did that breakdown video, because everybody was tweeting me saying, "Oh, what's he doing? He went down way too early." And I'm like, I don't think he did. So I went back and looked, and I was kind of going frame by frame, and he definitely didn't go down too early. The puck was well off the release when he went down, and it was just below the top of the circle when he shot it. So I'm like, okay, so why did he get beat on that? I had to figure it out. And I'm looking at him going, well, he's not out of position. He's not giving too much on the short side, but he was just slightly off kilter. And he wasn't square. So, if you're slightly off, the glove is back further. If he's just on, it's forward, changes the angle. Because everybody looks at the puck and they look at the puck as if it's coming on a straight line. No, it's coming from the ice and up. It's, you got to look at the puck trajectory from on the ice and coming up and the angle of that. That's why he got beat there. He's dialed that part in. As far as playing the puck, I mean, to me, the biggest thing you need to do when playing the puck is be decisive when you get it. As soon as you get it and think and start going, now you're screwed because they're on top of you. And we've seen that with him. So I think he's getting more comfortable getting out and playing pucks and just making little 4, 5, 6 foot passes, but knowing where he wants to go. He's got the ability to shoot it and control it, and all of those things are there. It's just the decision how fast the NHL game gets on top of you because it happens so fast. But you can also do things to help yourself. Like if they rim it in on your glove side and you get that puck, do not stay on that post. back up to your far post because now you're using the net and the ice just opens for you.
Yeah.
If you do those things, now you've got options on your right side. You got them on the weak side, on the side that they're coming in and the puck entered on. So you got a lot more options. You see Mike Smith do that a lot. He'll back up, or Ben Bishop. They back up to that post. Now they got more options. Then go straight back over.
Nothing worse than a rim to the half wall, and you're like, please, no, I don't want this defenseman to be coming in, or whoever it is, the forechecker as a defense. You're like, please don't rim it. But sometimes you have to. But no, I thought early in the season, I do a little notebook each game. I kind of published my notepad, and a few bullet points I had on there was you start the transition from your D zone to your O zone because Carter Hart hits your defenseman there, and you can get an easier breakout. Sometimes it's the little things that can go into like a rush the other way and get some numbers. So
I think they're huge when you can do that.
Oh,
you play D, you know, when your goalie goes back, gets pucks, pulls them off the boards, and you just turn into the corner and boom, it's on your tape. You're going the other. That's way easier for you guys. It's a massive asset.
You think I want to be looking over my left and my right? Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, you don't want to turn your back. No way. Did you see that goalie pot the goal this weekend?
No.
Rocco Bruno?
No.
He tweeted it to me. He plays for the 05 Pure Junior Flyers Tier 1 team.
Okay.
He was in a game. I think they were up 4-3. They dumped it in on him, and he got it out of his glove so fast and bombed it down the ice and scored a goal. He had a goal and an assist in the game.
Come on, no way. Oh, yeah, I see it right here. Wait, was this? Rocco Bruno was on Sport. I don't know if it was on SportsCenter. I see it tagged here, though. That's sick. I'll have to check it out for sure.
Good job by him.
Yeah, for sure. Before we wrap things up here, I got to ask you about Cam Atkinson. All right, what I love about this is the guy he wants to score. He enters the zone and thinks, I'm going to score. And there's little things, too. I love that line, and I wonder what's going to happen when Hayes comes back because he's clearly a top 6 forward, but maybe because of the couple surgeries he's had, he starts off and moves up, or whatever the case is. This line's clicking, though. That's why I bring that up. When he enters the zone and you just use Broussard in the middle of the ice. And just in general, this team is driving to the net, opening up lanes, entering the zone, finding soft areas to actually have a grade A scoring chance instead of last year where they were just pepper shots on net from the distance and hope and pray that you'd go far pad or something for a rebound. But Cam Atkinson specifically, I mean, he's just got that mentality of like, I'm going to score. When was the last time Simone Gagne, I could feel confident saying like, this guy is going to score?
Yeah, I think Gagne in probably like 03 or 04 was probably the last time you had one of those guys that was like not going to apologize for shooting. And yeah, Atkinson goes in and goes, don't expect me to hand it off to you. I'm going to shoot it. I'm going to fire it. And he can beat a goalie clean, which I think is, something they haven't had. The guy that coming down the wing, a la Mark Recchi back in the day on his off wing and can snap one by a goalie and just beat him with power. He's got that kind of release and that kind of shot. I got to ask some of the goalies about it and why it's tricky. I don't know if it just comes off his stick weird, if he changes his release points. I don't know what it is yet. I got to ask. But yeah, you're right. He's a guy that will shoot now, ask questions later. And like we've seen it so many times over the last bunch of years. What was it like? You'd have a 3-on-1. 3 guys get out and they pass the other. No, you take it. No, you take it. You take it. And the 3-on-1's over and there's no shot on goal. He's not going to do that. He's going to get it and he's going to fire. And he goes to those little spots where, there's a decision to be made between the defenseman and the winger of who's got him. That little soft area from like the dot to the top of the circle. I always call it like the decision zone because the D goes, okay, do I go out there and take him or is the winger going to come down and get him? And that little bit of, okay, who's doing it opens up a spot for him. He goes into that spot all the time. And that's where he scores a lot of goals from. And he's not afraid to go right down to the blue paint either. I mean, you want to score goals, it's real simple. Where to go. If you want to score, you're not going to beat many goalies out high with a blast. Just not going to happen. You go to those areas where, within 4.5, 5 feet of the net, that's where you score. That's where he hangs out. He scores goals.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I'm loving this team right now. They're fun. There's energy surrounding them, and they look like a solid structured team. And they're missing their number 1 defenseman and arguably their number 2 center, and they look this great scoring the puck. And, they're taking too many penalties, but their PK is good. Last night, they didn't have any penalties, which was solid there. But, yeah, the team fights, and that's why we're having a blast with them right now. And
I agree with you on the penalty thing. You can't do that. There's no rhythm on the bench when you do that. Like Broussard will play like 3 shifts in a period, or James Van Riemsdyk if you're you're taking 4 penalties in a period. You can't do that.
And some of
There's
them
no
are
rhythm.
dumb, too. That's what upsets me the most. And there's a difference between lazy penalties or unfortunate ones when you're being too aggressive, and it's like, hey, we'll live with that because you're playing with toughness. But some of these are just stupid at times.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, this isn't just the Flyers, but around the league, I've seen some calls where I'm like, that's a hockey play. Like Justin Braun was called for a slash. And I think it was the Vancouver game.
So was Giroux, I think, too. It was that little in the offensive zone as they were trying to break out. The offensive zone for Vancouver, I think it was.
Yeah, Braun just went in to tie up the guy's stick as he's trying to go up the ice in the neutral zone, and they called it a slash. I'm going, because he went down and up, but he didn't like slash him. He was just trying to mute the guy's stick, and they called it a penalty. I'm like, I don't like that. That's a hockey play all
I think they're taught that, though. As much as I want to rip the refs, I feel that's where the league is, where they're informed. If you see any sort of love tap by the glove area or whatever it is, they're going to call it. It sucks.
Yeah. And, you know, in 2 months, that won't be a penalty. But in the beginning of a year, they're all gung-ho with the new edicts and all that crap and cross-checking. And so that'll calm down. But, you got to be careful. You got to know that they're going to call all that crap in the beginning. And I guess sometimes you just can't make a hockey play, but your instinct takes over. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe those are the ones AV lives with. But with that being said, I want to thank you so much for joining us today to talk about the Fly Guys. I'll have you on as we continue the season to kind of maybe give us a little, little recap on where they are during that time. So thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime, Hunter, man. I love talking hockey. You know that. You do too. And I appreciate you having me.